Morning, everybody. So today we're going to be talking about drills and impacts. So the impact is kind of the evolution of the drill. So we're going to start off with that. So this is a Makita cordless drill. Cordless as it doesn't have a cord, it has a battery. So a couple of features of the cordless drill. We're going to start with the battery. Every tool, every company that you get is going to work a little bit differently. They're going to have different features. The Makita, the one that we have here at the University of Montevallo, you push the little trigger on the front, pull it forward. That makes it so that you disconnect. There's no more power to this. Plug the battery in, make sure that it's seated all of the way, and you can turn it on. Okay, a couple of features. So first we have these toggle switches on the sides. When you have it in your right hand, I know the video is backwards, but when you have it in your right hand, you put that toggle in. That allows you to go clockwise or forwards. Click it the other direction. That allows you to go in reverse or counterclockwise. If you put it in the middle, it locks the trigger so you can't pull the trigger. These lights are a newer feature, newer in the last 10 years, I guess. Different tools work differently. Some of them you have to be pulling the trigger. Some of them have kind of like this one, a delay where the light stays on for a little bit. It's helpful, not necessary, but it's nice. All right, moving on to other features. Here at the top, there's typically a speed setting. If you go with really cheap drills, they won't, and it's just that. It's a maximum speed setting. So 1 has a smaller maximum speed setting, 2 has a larger maximum speed setting. These Makitas have 2 rings on them. See if I can focus in here. So there's one ring that has a setting. So it's got these little lines. That is a drill. The next one is a screw, and this one is a hammer. And then this next ring is a torque setting. So this sets your maximum torque. These numbers that are on there aren't real. They're not measurements. It's just that 9 is 1 higher than 10, 16 is 5 higher than 9. But basically what the torque setting does is it allows you to choose how much torque you want to put on a screw while you're putting something in. It only works when you have it in the screw setting. So we take it off of hammer and put it in line with the screw setting. So what that is for is if you're ever screwing into a delicate material, glass, plexiglass, something where you don't want to drive the screw too far, you can set the torque setting low, and then when you've reached that certain amount of torque, the gun will just stop and it makes this terrible noise. And so it stops spinning because it has reached its maximum torque. If you're ever seeing that happen on accident and you don't like it, if you put it over in drill mode, that just ignores this whole system. That's all drill is the torque is all on all the way. Hammer turns this drill, so hammer setting, turns this drill into a quasi-hammer drill, which a hammer drill basically, including the ability to spin, the whole hammer kind of vibrates back and forth. The idea is that when you're drilling with masonry, you actually have to chip it away, kind of like a jackhammer, where you have to chip it, and then spinning actually just gets the dust out of the way. So the whole drill kind of vibrates as you're going. These do not make great hammer drills. They're perfect if you're drilling through pretty soft things like concrete blocks. Not great for going through concrete floor or hard poured concrete outside. If you're doing a serious concrete project, you want to buy a designated concrete drill. This is kind of like, it's a regular drill with like a little bit of hammer on top of it. All right, so moving forward, this is the keyless chuck. We're starting to get to a world where we don't really see keyed chucks anymore except for drill presses. Sometimes you can find an old drill and you actually have to put in a key to turn the chuck. So this is a keyless chuck, and what you do is you spin this and it, see if I can get that on the video, it increases or decreases the size of the teeth or the chuck that is inside of it. So we will put in a drill bit to start. So this is a wood drill bit. It's got a nice point on it that makes it good for drilling into soft woods. But you open up your chuck so that it can fit in there. And then you can tighten your chuck. When it gets all the way close, you'll hear a ratcheting sound. So as you turn it, kind of ratchets on there. And then you know that it's in spot. You can hold on to it to loosen it. So if you've got it in there, you just hold the chuck, put it in reverse, and spin. You can take it out. You don't have to do that. It is mildly dangerous, I guess, if you do it wrong. Also, you never want to hold on to the chuck and turn the engine or turn the button really hard. You'll burn out your motor. So you want to, if you are using the control to put it in there, you want to wait and then ratchet it down by hand. With this, you can put anything up to a 1/2 inch thick, so you can do really small bits, really big bits, screw bits, different types of tips. There's an endless supply of bits and tips and types of things that you can put into a tool like this. We could talk about a little bit, but it's really not worth the time because there's so many. The basic drill bit or a screw tip, right, which is just an adapter for a Phillips screwdriver or whatever type of screwdriver you want to use for your given project. Same process, stick it in there, tighten it up. The tool person's code is that before you turn on the drill, before you use the drill, you got to rev it twice, just so you know it works. It's an unwritten code. I think somebody actually wrote it down once, but just so you know. All right, so that's pretty much everything for the drill. After I talk about the impact, we'll talk a little bit about technique on how to use it and make sure that you're using it properly. So let's switch over to the impact real quick. So the impact is newer technology. It hasn't been around for more than a decade or two, and it's kind of an evolution from NASCAR. An impact driver is what they use to take on and off the nuts for automotive. So this has a quick change chuck. So it doesn't really have a chuck that tightens. So the way that you put it, you have to put, or you can only put tools in here that have this hexagon pattern. See if I can get it to focus. There we go. That's the only thing that will fit inside of it. So it's got to have a hex pattern and it's got to have this little divot. So what you do is you take the impact and you pull it out, stick the bit in there, and then let go, and it draws back, and now this piece is locked in. Okay? So what the impact does is it adds torque for you. So as you are putting in a really long screw, as you're doing a project that requires a lot of pushing down on, there's a cam inside of this. So as the drill is spinning, there's basically a little hammer that hits the cam and makes it spin a little bit faster. And so instead of putting all of that torque on your wrist, on your arm, and requiring you to physically fight the drill, this adds torque to the project so that it's easier for you to do it. Let's do a demonstration, shall we? So we're going to start off with the impact. I'm going to just put a screw into this board, and we are dealing with a 3-inch screw, which with a drill is kind of a hard screw to do. There's a lot of torque required to put a 3-inch screw into a board. So one of the key things is that when you are putting a screw in with an impact, you want to make sure that the screw is perfectly straight with the drill. Impacts spin very quickly. So if you are off at all, if you've got an angle, what will happen is the drill will spin, but the screw will not, which strips the screw and makes it so you can't get the screw out. One thing I forgot to mention is it does have the same toggle switches. So click it on the right side, goes forward, click it on the left side, goes reverse. So take the screw, hold it in your hand, put it in the bit, put it on the board. I like to hold on to the tip of the screw where it's not threaded just to get the screw started and into the wood. Then you want to make sure that your gun is perfectly aligned with the screw so you're not at an angle, but you are straight in line in all directions. And then it helps to put another hand on the back of the drill to make sure you're pressing down. And I prefer what I refer to as the CPR method. So instead of trying to push it all down in one fail swoop, I like to do little bursts to make sure that you're putting the right amount of pressure behind it. So you hear that terrible noise, that ratcheting sound, that's the little hammer inside of it hitting the cam and making it easier to spin. Now, one of the things that is complicated is that taking out a screw requires more force sometimes than putting in a screw. So it's weird because you're pushing downward force to take something out, but that's the way that it works, right? So it's very similar to putting a screw in, but it's deceivingly difficult, right? Because you're thinking, oh, I'm just going to take it out, so it shouldn't require much pressure. You want to push down pretty hard as that screw comes out. Make sense? Perfect. Now, let's talk about the drill, right? A lot of the same concepts, right? When you're putting in a drill or drilling in a hole, you want to try to make sure your drill is as straight as possible. There are tools that you can get that help you drill straight. But oftentimes you're just trying to make a hole so it doesn't really matter if it's perfectly straight or not. So put your drill bit onto the board before you turn it on. I typically like to start my hole. So before I push too far, I like to just get it started, start at the cut. Then once it's started, once it's bit into the wood, I start spinning. Now we have a little hole in the wood. If you notice, some of these drills, the newer drills have a feature on them. It's a torque overload. Basically, if the drill senses that there's too much torque going into it, the drill just kind of stops. And what that is doing is it's preventing it from breaking your wrist. Because if you get a certain amount of torque inside of this and you're drilling a hole, the drill will get away from you and fly off, and it could potentially injure your wrist. Usually won't break it, but it could strain your wrist or hurt your wrist. So it's got a kind of safety procedure inside of it that helps it so that you don't hurt yourself as badly. Like the drill, there's an endless number of things you can put into an impact. This is a good example of one. This is a socket adapter. So for doing socket wrenches, and you can put this adapter into the quick change chuck, stick on whatever socket you want, and you can tighten or loosen a bolt. And there's tons of adaptions, right? So you can buy drill bits that go specifically for this. You just have to make sure they've got that quick change bit on them. All right, that's it for drills and impacts. Hope you guys stay tuned for the next video.